Right now, something is unfolding quietly, and most people don't even notice it. Across the natural world, a subtle shift is gaining momentum. Reports suggest tick populations are rising in some areas. Scientists have warned that illnesses like Lyme disease may be increasing in some regions. In places like Southeast Michigan, this was once barely discussed now. It returns every year with growing concern, no longer something that can be ignored, and the warnings are becoming harder to ignore. Experts say this season may demand more attention than ever, not just to ticks in general, but to one in particular. Reports suggest the Lone Star tick is appearing in new regions, and it has been associated with a condition known as alpha-gal syndrome. In some reported cases, a single bite has been linked to a sudden and unexpected reaction where the body no longer tolerates red meat the way it once did. For many, this isn't just a medical detail. It feels like a disruption of something familiar, something once taken for granted. What used to be ordinary now becomes uncertain. And that shift raises a deeper question. How quickly can the natural order change before we even realize it? Scripture reminds us in Hosea 4-6, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge," not as a warning of fear, but as a call to awareness. Because sometimes, the smallest changes carry consequences far greater than they first appear. Stay with this, because what starts small here may connect to something much bigger than it first seems. Then there are stories that make this impossible to dismiss. One account describes how everything changed almost instantly, an active life brought to a halt without warning. For Candace Matisse, the experience was deeply unsettling. According to her account, her blood pressure dropped, severe pain followed, and for years, no clear explanation came. It wasn't just the symptoms, it was the uncertainty that made it overwhelming. After more than a decade of searching, doctors reportedly identified a possible cause. Reports linked her condition to a single bite from a Lone Star tick, associated with what is known as alpha-gal syndrome. In certain cases, this condition has been connected to sudden reactions to red meat and related products, something that once felt completely normal. For some, even being near certain foods has reportedly triggered intense responses. Not by preference, not by lifestyle, but by a shift happening within the body itself. And as warmer months approach, reports suggest tick populations are expanding into areas once considered low risk, with more documented cases appearing across different regions. This is no longer just an isolated issue. Patterns are being observed. Situations once thought rare are becoming more frequently discussed. And for many, it raises an uncomfortable realization how something so small can quietly alter something so fundamental. At the same time, these cases are increasing. Another conversation is quietly gaining ground, one that moves beyond observation and into intervention. In academic circles, some researchers have explored whether human biology itself could be adjusted to influence behavior. One idea that has been discussed is this: if people struggle to change habits, could the body be altered in a way that changes those habits for them? The reasoning, as it's sometimes presented, sounds practical. Reducing certain consumption patterns could benefit the environment. But if voluntary change proves difficult, then perhaps biology becomes the next frontier. After all, we already understand how intolerances work. Some people cannot process certain foods naturally. So the question being raised in these discussions is whether similar responses could, in theory, be introduced deliberately. In that context, examples from nature are sometimes referenced, such as the very tick associated with alpha-gal syndrome, illustrating how a biological shift can reshape what the body accepts or rejects. From there, the idea extends further. If such changes occur naturally, could they also be guided through human innovation? Taken individually, each point may sound like exploration, like progress moving step by step. But when these ideas begin to align, when natural changes and engineered possibilities start pointing in the same direction, a deeper question begins to emerge. As it is written in Ecclesiastes 1-9, there is no new thing under the sun. Yet in every generation, old patterns can return in new forms. And that is where this story begins to deepen. Layered onto these developments is a broader shift led by influential voices in technology and global investment. Some have openly encouraged a transition away from traditional beef consumption toward engineered alternatives, often linking it to environmental concerns. Over recent years, companies producing plant-based and lab-developed foods appear to have expanded, with more of these products becoming available. What once sounded experimental is now becoming part of everyday life. Not only substitutes, but in some cases, fully engineered replacements. Meat, dairy, even fats are being recreated in controlled environments, designed to mimic what has long come from nature. The process removes dependence on livestock and farmland, replacing it with precision systems and chemical replication. For some, this represents innovation. For others, it signals a deeper transformation in how humanity relates to what it consumes. Because this is no longer just about offering options, it is about redefining the source itself. As it is written in Genesis 1:29, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, and every tree. To you it shall be for meat." A design once received is now being reimagined. And when what was created is gradually replaced by what is constructed, the tension grows stronger. What first looked like adaptation now begins to raise a deeper and more serious question. We are often told these changes are for the benefit of the planet, that they are necessary, that they represent the direction the world must take. And at first glance, each idea can stand on its own. Each sounds reasonable, even practical, but when you begin to step back, something else starts to take shape. Because now these patterns are no longer isolated, they are moving together, natural food systems shifting, conversations about adjusting human biology. Innovations designed to replace what once came directly from creation. And when all of these begin pointing toward the same horizon, it naturally raises a deeper question. Is this simply a series of unrelated developments, or is there a broader direction forming beneath the surface? And if there is a direction, what is truly driving it? Is it only about environmental concerns? Is it about managing resources more efficiently? Is it about influencing behavior on a global scale? Or could there be layers to this that are not immediately visible? Scripture reminds us in Proverbs 3:21, "My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound, wisdom, and discretion." Because not everything is understood by looking at one piece alone. Sometimes, clarity only comes when you begin to see how the pieces connect. And once they do, the question is no longer just what is happening, but what it ultimately leads to. Watch closely, because in the next part, the pieces begin to connect in a way that changes everything. That is why this moment cannot be viewed only through science or culture, because Scripture has long warned that human thinking can drift when people begin trying to redefine what was already established. A time when creation is no longer received with humility, but gradually reshaped by human hands. Genesis reveals a foundational truth. When God completed creation, He called it very good, not unfinished, not flawed, not awaiting correction. And yet today, there is a growing mindset that questions that design a belief that it can be improved, redesigned, even replaced. And this is where the issue moves beyond science. For many believers, this becomes a question of authority. Who ultimately defines what is good? Psalm 139 declares, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made." That statement carries weight. It affirms intention, not accident. But now we are entering a period where that very design is being examined, even reconsidered, in the name of solving global challenges. And step by step, systems are being built that move reliance away from creation itself and toward human-controlled processes. The shift is subtle. It does not present itself as opposition. It often appears as progress, as solutions, as something reasonable on the surface. But underneath, a deeper question remains. Are we moving closer to the original design or further from it? This is not the first time humanity has stood at such a crossroads. The account of the Tower of Babel shows a united people driven by ambition, saying, "Let us build a tower that reaches to the heavens." It looked like advancement. It looked like unity. But God saw something deeper, a humanity stepping beyond its boundaries, no longer dependent on Him. And now, for many observers, that pattern seems to echo again in a different form. Not through towers of stone, but through systems, technologies, and ideas that aim to reshape life itself. Not only the world around us, but what it means to be human. Jesus said in Matthew 24-37, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man." When you look back to Genesis 6, it describes a time when corruption extended beyond behavior, reaching into the very fabric of creation. For many readers of Scripture, that parallel may feel difficult to ignore. Today, the line between what is natural and what is engineered may appear less clear to many people. What is real and what is constructed are beginning to look the same. And this is where discernment becomes essential. Because change does not always arrive loudly, it often comes in small shifts, subtle adjustments, ideas that seem harmless until they become normalized. 2 Thessalonians 2-9-10 warns of a deception so strong that it affects those who do not love the truth. Not those without knowledge, but those who choose not to hold on to it. And that reveals something critical. This is not just a matter of information. It is a matter of discernment. Not everything presented as beneficial is without consequence. Not everything called progress necessarily leads in the right direction. Some paths, over time, may lead away from the simplicity, the design, and the dependence that were there from the beginning. That is why Scripture instructs clearly in 1 Thessalonians 5:21, "Test all things, hold fast to what is good." Because in a world that is constantly shifting, the real question is not just what is changing, but what remains constant. And after seeing how these changes connect, the focus can no longer remain only on the world around us. It now comes down to where you stand within it. In a world that is constantly shifting, stability is not found in trends or systems, but in something unchanging. And Scripture points clearly to that foundation. This is where everything becomes personal. It is one thing to recognize the changes happening across society. It is another to decide how you will respond. You can watch the direction of the world, you can listen to the conversations, but ultimately, the defining question is not about what others are doing, it is about you. So the question becomes unavoidable. Where do you stand? Because we are entering a time where remaining neutral is becoming increasingly difficult. The lines are becoming more visible. The direction is becoming more defined. And in moments like this, standing in between is not sustainable. You may either be shaped by the patterns around you, or choose to remain anchored in something deeper. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That word conformed speaks of gradual shaping, something that happens over time, often without being noticed. And that is exactly how influence works in this generation. Not through sudden force, but through steady repetition, through ideas that slowly become accepted. That is why awareness matters. Because if you are not grounded, you may not even realize when the shift begins. Hebrews 13:8 reminds us, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. While everything else evolves, redefines, and changes direction, that truth remains constant. And that is where real stability is found, not in what culture approves, not in what seems popular, but in what has already been established. This path is not always easy. There will be moments where standing firm feels uncomfortable, moments where it feels like you are moving against the current, but that is not unexpected. As it is written, "The path that leads to life is narrow and few find it." Psalm 91 speaks of a place of refuge. "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." That is not just poetic language. It describes a position, a place of clarity, of covering, of steadiness, even when everything else feels uncertain. So yes, the world continues to change. New ideas will continue to emerge. Boundaries may continue to be tested. But none of that alters this truth. God remains unchanged. And in a time where so much is being redefined, that may be the most important thing to hold on to. Because in the end, this is not about keeping pace with the world. It is about remaining faithful to what does not change. If this message made you think differently, take a moment to reflect on where you stand and what you choose to hold on to.